Hey guys, today I wanted to share some upgrades that I've made to the GPT-4 based chatbot I've been working on called Pico. I have another video where I go into all the base code and how I implemented some of that stuff. This one's just going to be about one module that I've added recently, but it's probably one of the more impactful ones, and that's allowing Pico to search Google, but when it's needed. The base model is GPT-4, and GPT-4's training set ends in September 2021, so it doesn't know anything about events that happened after that date. And importantly, for an AI assistant, we want to query things like weather or current stock prices or events that are happening near me or in the future. And so being able to get real-time information is really important. So first I'll show you how the chatbot works without the Google module. So we can ask it about the weather, and it knows that it doesn't have real-time information because it's been trained that way in its reinforcement learning through human feedback. And we could ask it some other question. Same thing. It doesn't know, and it knows that it doesn't know in general. So let me show you the code that I've used to let it query Google and respond accurately. Okay, so this is the main agent that I've implemented that will search Google. It's called Google Agent, and it takes a prompt and a cutoff. So the prompt is whatever we type in, like what is the weather today, and the cutoff, I'll explain it here. So the system message for it says you analyze a user's input to a large language model with training data that cuts off September 2021, and then we tell it the current year. The current year is 2023. You decide how likely it is that a user's request will benefit from a Google search to help address the question. Respond with a number in the range 1 to 10, where 1 is very unlikely that a Google search will be beneficial, and 10 meaning a Google search is highly necessary. Queries that will benefit from Google searches are those which involve current events or information that is likely to change day to day. And then we inject the prompt. And then here we get the Google probability, so how likely it is in that number 1 to 10. So it should only spit out a number from 1 to 10, and we get that, which is a string, we convert it to an integer, and then we compare that probability to our cutoff, so we can change this cutoff so it can call Google more or less frequently. And then what we do is we search and scrape and trim the text. So I'll show you what those things are doing. Okay, so this is the search and scrape function, and what it's doing is generating this user agent, which tells the search engine, yeah, we're a computer running this operating system using Mozilla and stuff like that. And all we do is we get the URL for Google, and we insert our query to that, and we get back the response. So what this is doing is basically just typing in whatever we search directly into Google. So if I say, what's the weather like today in LA, that's just going to get appended to this URL, and we're going to search Google and get the response. The response that we get is the search engine results page. So that's the first page you see when you search Google. It turns out that search engine results page actually has a lot of information and context in it, especially because Google uses cards to present summaries either on the side or above the search results, with the hopes that users don't need to click on all the links. And we can actually get that information and use it to answer our query without opening any other web page. So what we do is just parse that page and extract the text, and then we just take all that text and return it. And if we can't return it, then we say we failed. And usually the most important stuff is going to be in the first part of that web page. So the trim text just takes the first bit of it. So here we're cutting off the first 450 characters because that usually just has the text of our query again, and then some stuff like images, maps, whatever, stuff we don't care about. And then we just take the next 1500 characters because it's probably going to be in the first 1,000 or so characters that we could get our answer out. And yeah, so we get the search results, that's the trimmed search results, and then we send that information to our query agent, which is something I made for the document embedding file, which I go into a lot of detail in my other video. So the query agent just answers a user's question given some text as context to help answer the question. So what we do is we generate this query with context, which is our prompt. So that would be like, what's the weather like today? And then the search results, which is the first part of the search engine results page that we got. And then we feed that whole thing into the query agent, and that returns to us the answer to our query. And if we decide that we actually don't need a Google search, then this whole thing just returns false. Here I set the cutoff to 11, so the Google agent will never be triggered. So if we set it down to, say, 6, and then we save this, we can try again with Pico and see if it's able to answer real-time questions. Okay, so I restarted the chatbot now with the lower threshold for the Google cutoff, and we'll see if it can answer a real-time question. Okay, great. So it was able to get the context from the search engine results page and parse it into a nice summary that answers our question about the weather. Let's see if it can do something else, like okay, cool. So this was a really simple modification that allows us to answer a whole wide range of questions, and we can modify the cutoff to change its behavior. So I hope you find that interesting, and I'll see you next time.